It's time for a roundtable.
Alright guys, so up next we have a roundtable discussion
by a new host, ZeldaMusicLover, who you might remember from a previous Keaton quiz, and I think he did a segment for us too, and he does lots of stuff for us, but he is hosting a roundtable.
And surprisingly enough, the roundtable is about music in Zelda.
Wow, didn't see that one coming.
So go ahead, Zelda Music Lover.
Hey there everyone, this is ZeldaMusicLover here, and I have two guests with me for a roundtable. I have Baysiderulez.
Hey!
And I have Hero of Music.
Hey guys!
Both of them are good members and staff on the Zelda Dungeon site, so without further ado, let's get this roundtable started. So to start off, we're going to discuss the importance of the music in Zelda. So, who has an idea of why it's important?
It's obviously important because you have to use the music throughout the game in order to solve certain puzzles, in order to get to new areas, in order to warp from point to point, etc., etc.
Okay. Well, see, I find, in addition to what you said, Hero, something that's also really important about the music is the music sets the whole tone and mood of the game. It gives you that sense of urgency, it gives you that sense of adventure, mystery, that you should be nervous or whether you should be excited. All the music affects every aspect of the game and how you feel about the game.
I kind of agree with that, Bayside, because during the well sequence and the Shadow Temple and Ocarina of Time, I just hate the music. I shake all the time. I just don't like it. I get freaked out by it. It's just the creepiest music ever. But I push through anyway as fast as I can. So I agree with what you're saying with the tone.
I just love the music in Zelda. There isn't a single song in the entire series that I don't like. I love humming the music, hearing the melody, hearing the harmonies, hearing all the different percussion parts. Everything within the music is just so rich and powerful. I just love the music in Zelda, and I feel that the music helps bring tension and other types of emotion into the areas of the gameplay while you play, which is a very important thing when you're playing video games or watching a movie or things like that. It truly brings an atmosphere to the game.
I can see that. Bayside, anything to add to that?
Well, I actually totally agree with Hero on that point. The atmosphere is really what makes or breaks the game, and music is an enormous part of that.
Alright. Now let's change it around a bit. Now let's think of the music as if it was a really bad game, and we had that type of music playing. Think of the worst music from a video game ever, and put it in as in the Zelda music. Would it still be as interesting? Or would the atmosphere still be the same? Or because the music's different and it's just a poor quality? Or, yeah.
Well, the game would definitely be different. I mean, the way I know Zelda is through the music and the majestic melodies and songs that were written for it. So thinking of it in a different way would totally change how I look on Zelda. If it was horrible music, like you said, it would definitely make me kind of stray away from the game, and I definitely wouldn't be humming the music or even really paying attention to it, because I'm an avid music lover. I absolutely love listening to music and tearing it apart and listening to the complex melodies and harmonies and all the things that make music. And if it was terrible music in a Zelda game while I'm riding around on Hyrule Field on Epona, I would feel totally out of place because it just wouldn't seem like the Hyrule Field to me.
I was going to go on to say that the quality of the music, is I guess not so much important to me as what the music makes you feel. Because I go back to the game I grew up with was the original Legend of Zelda, and that was simple music. but it was still had a full sounding to it. Now, if you put that same music to Ocarina of Time and you didn't change anything in it, then I think maybe we wouldn't feel like that game was as full as it could be. You know, as things got more complex, the music got more complex, you were able to become more emotionally attached to the game. So I would say that if you stuck different music to it, yeah, it would definitely be effective.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, like, I can see where you guys are coming from that, because when the newer Zelda games came out, the complexity changed, and then you had different themes for, like, minor things, like, when you came up to an enemy, the music would change suddenly, be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? What do I have to do? You're like superhero-like now. You're like superhero now, even though you already were a superhero before, and you're like, what do I need to shoot with my bow? Go, yeah.
Yeah, I even enjoy Wind Waker when the music changes after every hit that you hit an enemy with your sword. It like does this cool little like fanfare type thing through the horns and the strings, and it just makes the music come alive, and it's so much more involved than some of the original games in Zelda, like A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening. All the handheld games and the NES games were like completely kind of dry music-wise. I mean, I love the music and it's like totally perfect for it, but like when you did certain things, it was just kind of like, oh, it's the same music over and over again. Even like individual dungeons had the same themes. The overworld had the same theme throughout the entire game, and it just kind of, the music could get boring in a sense if you're like playing for hours and hours and you don't really care about it too much. But when you get to the newer games, like Twilight Princess or Wind Waker, for example, the music changes every time you like enter a house or walk into a cave or go to a completely different island or a new location on the map. The music just changes and gets more involved as the games get further and further. So it's a lot. Later games are just a lot better at capturing their audience and making sure that they're involved with the music and with the gameplay itself, because the music essentially enhances the gameplay.
Yeah. Could you even go as far as saying that some people don't find the older games as fun because the music itself is so repetitive and it's a bit overused in a way?
Well, I personally wouldn't, because I still love listening to that music, even like when I'm just not doing anything at home, like working on a homework assignment, for example. I just put in like some old soundtracks and just listen to the same songs over and over again. But I can see where people would be coming from if like a game like the original Zelda games, if the music, since the music doesn't change, I guess in a sense it could get boring. But also with the NES era, you could also just mute the game, because the music and the sounds aren't all that important for when you play the games. You could just mute it and just listen to your own music if you wanted to.
Bayside? Anything?
Well, I like his point about muting the game, because growing up with Zelda, I found that occasionally I did mute the music on the game and would play without the music. And while it might take away from the auditory input, sometimes the music isn't all that necessary, and sometimes I think in some ways it might make the game more challenging to play, because you don't have, like in the later games, the music is kind of, in a way, holding your hand and guiding you through the level. Like, take, for example, Ocarina of Time, and you're going through the Lost Woods. You kind of rely on the music to, to get to the meadow on the other side. And so, like, without the music, it makes the game a little bit harder. You have to rely more on memorization and, for the most part, rather than the music getting louder or quieter depending on where you're going.
Yeah, like the Lost Woods in the original Legend of Zelda. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you're going. With Ocarina of Time, you can just follow the music, you know. It was important because it helped you get through there, because no other character told you how to get through there. in the original Legend of Zelda, you either had to figure it out yourself, find a character that would tell you, or look it up on the internet, or, well, I guess the internet wasn't all that big back then, so you had to figure it out yourself. But, yeah, music can definitely help you solve puzzles and do other awesome things in the newer Zelda games. Which is why I'm really excited for Skyward Sword, because it's all going to be orchestrated.
I tend to disagree with you there, Bayside, because when you first go to the Sacred Forest Meadow, when you learn Saria's song, and it makes sense to follow it because it's leading you to a new area that you would have otherwise no idea how to get to, and then you have to deal with memorization then for every other time you go through it. I think it's a way of showing, this is how you do it the first time, now you're on your own from here on out, so good luck with that.
That's a whole nother discussion entirely on the helpers the new Zelda games give.
Okay, so Hiro, you said you're looking forward to the orchestration in Skyward Sword. Could you tell me why you're looking so forward to it besides you love the orchestrations?
Well, I have this thing for orchestrated music. Don't get me wrong, I love the MIDI music too, but I just feel that orchestrated music can give a lot more depth than MIDI music can, because you get all of the awesome overtones that real instruments produce and all of the really cool, like, things that you can do with real instruments, like multiphonics on a tuba where you can play two notes at once instead of just one. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, but I just love the things that you can do with orchestrated music. While MIDI music can be used for like video games and stuff, I think that orchestrated music will gives the video games a lot more depth and make it a lot better to listen to. Like, take Mario Galaxy 2, for example. Entirely orchestrated score. Amazing music. It was just amazing to play that game because the music was so involved and just awesome. I just love orchestrated music like that. It's just really fun to listen to and fun to play along with.
Yeah. Bayside?
Well, I look forward to hearing the orchestration in Skyward Sword, mainly just to see how they recreate our Zelda experience and how they do give it that extra layer of depth. And it will be an interesting change, but I think a good change for the Zelda series.
Yeah, Twilight Princess almost went that route. I mean, they used a lot more difficult MIDI music than any of the other previous Zelda games. It was a lot more realistic sounding MIDI music, but it was still MIDI music though. So the orchestrated music will obviously like give it that depth, but I honestly feel that it won't change things a whole lot since we've already had kind of an orchestrated feel in like Twilight Princess and a little bit in Wind Waker. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, about orchestration music, like you said, Hiro, I love that you can hear the overtones and everything about it when you have just the real instrument itself. It's like when you go to a live concert of some famous orchestration rather than just hearing it on a CD. Just the real life experience of just hearing the instruments itself is a thing in itself of like, wow, that just sounds awesome. I can't wait for this to be even better.
Yeah, seriously, like, just going to symphonies and just listening to some of your favorite music being performed live and with real instruments is just awesome to hear, because it's like a sudden blast of sound and beauty and like all of the instruments working together to create one really cool sound and song. It's just amazing to listen to orchestrated music, especially when it's done really well, which I anticipate Skyward Sword will be done. Knowing the musical staff of the Nintendo, they're going to put a lot into the orchestrated music behind Skyward Sword because they have the reputation of Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2. If they don't put out something as good as those two games, there's not really a chance that orchestrated music will last long in Zelda.
Yeah. Do you think they'd ever go as far as putting orchestrated music into the DS games?
They actually started a little tiny bit with Ocarina of Time 3D. I don't want to give away spoilers, but there is one song in Ocarina of Time 3D that has orchestrated music in it. So it can obviously be done on the 3DS, and I think, and the 3DS definitely has enough power and great technical attributes behind it to make orchestrated music work. And I'm pretty certain that they will start putting orchestrated music on the handheld devices. It's completely possible, and it's pretty realistic.
I kind of want orchestrated music, but I'm sort of hesitant on it because just think of how big an orchestrated file is, because you then gotta compress it down to so small, and it just, when you compress a file of real orchestrated music, it just kind of loses some of its true qualities that make it a true orchestrated piece.
Did you know that the 3DS cartridge has 8 gigabytes of memory? There's plenty of space for orchestrated music on there.
No, I did not know that, so thanks for telling me. Bayside, do you have anything to put to that?
Not really. I've never been much of a handheld person, and I haven't gotten really to experience the 3DS experience yet.
So that is that. So I'd like to thank both of you guys for doing this with me. It was a fun experience. And
yeah, it was.
It's kind of...
Thanks for having us.
No problem. And,
yeah, thanks.
And so, yes, that was Hero of Music and Baysiderulez with me, ZeldaMusicLover, doing a roundtable on the importance of Zelda music. Thank you, and see ya! Or actually, I'll hear you later.
Hero of Music's pretty excited about the orchestrated music in Skyward Sword.
He really is, but you know what? I think it's important.
Of course it's important, and it's going to add a lot to the series, just like they talked about.
Exactly.
Thanks so much, guys, for the roundtable, and to all of our listeners, you're going to be hearing from a few different roundtable hosts, I think, from now on. Axel the Beast has got some people helping him out, so thank you very much, ZeldaMusicLover, and thank you to your guests.